Hey guys, welcome back to more Entitled People stories. In this video, my landlord installed 16 spy cameras in the house I rented and then sold content of my family online. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the title story starts like this. When we first met Mr. Huber, he struck us as a friendly, accommodating landlord. He was so easygoing that we thought we had stumbled into a renter's dream. Our family needed a fresh start away from school-related hardships and drama. When we moved to the Southwest region, we intended to leave the problems of the Midwest behind. Southern hospitality was something I'd always heard about but hardly ever encountered. Mr. Huber could not have been nicer as we agreed to be his tenants. However, when we moved into our new rental house on Brent Grove, we experienced a violation so egregious that there were times I considered moving my family again. I just wish I knew what we were getting into before this happened, and well, my husband John and I spent months looking for a perfect home for us, our daughter Sonna, and our son Tyler. We finally found the Brent Grove house and contacted the landlord's office. Things were actually settled quickly, and after a lot of hectic packing and moving, we finally moved into our new home, excited as can be. The first few weeks were uneventful as we fell into the rhythm of our new lives. John found a new job and I continued my old job working fully remotely. So I set up my home office and John and I decorated our kitchen. The kids loved their spacious new rooms and everything felt right. A few things needed fixing around the house and Mr. Huber came out personally to take care of them when we asked. About 2 months later, things suddenly got weird and unsettling. It was a random Friday night and Sonna was getting ready to go see a movie with some girls she had made friends with at school, and when she came out of her room holding a small black device in her hand. "Mom?" Her voice carried down the hall, uncertain as she approached me. "Why is there a camera in my room?" A strange chill ran down my spine. A camera? That didn't seem to make sense. And what's worse is that Sonna's tone seemed to convey that she thought John and I put one in her room to keep tabs on her. I took it from her, assuring her I did not know what she meant. It was small, barely 2 inches in width, and I could tell a small blue light was blinking on its underside. I covered it in my hand. "Where did you find this?" I asked. "I accidentally knocked the books off the shelf facing my bed, and when I went to pick them up, it was among them." Sonna said, still not sure what to think here. I was hit with a serious wave of unease and I called John in from the kitchen. I opened my hand and extended the camera to him. His face went from curiosity to concern. He asked Sonna again about where she found the camera and said that we should look around more closely. Without getting Tyler's attention for the time being, we scoured multiple rooms in the house. In the first half hour, we found 6 other cameras, 1 in each bathroom, 1 in our bedroom, 2 in our kitchen, and the one over the basement stairs. That night, I could not sleep and I was already thinking about what we had not checked and what we would do about this awful situation. John was seething, but trying to restrain himself before taking action. Surely whoever planted these was watching, so they were actually well aware that they were found. John thought it would be best to look more first and think about our approach. The next morning, John put all of the cameras in a small black bag and we started to look for even more. To our shock, we found many others. 1 in Tyler's room, 1 in the dining room, 2 others in our living room, and the rest sparsely planted in obscure places around our home, totaling 15. They were very well hidden, so unless one looked very closely, they were not noticeable. But then Sonna found another one taped to the corner of the carpet in her room, under her desk, pointing upwards to where the bottom half of her body would be when she sat there. At this point, Tyler had been clued in on what was going on and was visibly shaken. He did offer some advice as a tech-savvy kid, saying that each camera had a port that, if hooked up to a computer, could reveal where they were broadcasting to. John spent the rest of the day researching it and found enough information to try it out. Carefully making sure to point the camera away from himself and facing a wall, he was able to figure out that the cameras were indeed streaming the signal, and there was documentation of stills and short videos captured and stored somewhere. I don't think I've ever seen John so angry. He had another unsettling thought. What was happening with these videos? And what's more, the only people who were in the house were Mr. Huber and a few contractors since we had moved in. These cameras would have been in place since that time. We just could not imagine Mr. Huber doing something like this. It was so out of character, so we figured it was one of the contractors. So we decided to set up a meeting with Mr. Huber, but we kept our reasons vague. He invited us to come by his residence if we needed to meet today and sounded as friendly as ever. When we drove over, he invited us in and offered a drink. When we sat down, John took out the bag of cameras and set it on the table, opening it up. Huber stared down at them, then at us. After a moment of silence, he looked up at us with a fading smile and simply said, "Okay, and?" We were too shocked to speak. Finally, I said, "This is not okay, at all." Someone who worked on our house installed these all over the place. We think we found them all, but we don't know. We need a list of the names of all the contractors who worked on our home so we can continue figuring this out. Before jumping to conclusions, let me assure you that I've worked with my contractors for years and they would not put cameras in a home. I can vouch for them. But I'll tell you what, leave these with me and I will look for who they belong to. He smiled and reached for the bag. Suddenly, John swiped the bag and the camera that was outside of it into his grasp. Actually, we prefer to handle this ourselves. Someone put these all over our home, including the bedrooms, bathrooms and living room, and we are not gonna ignore them. I have friends already helping me trace the source of the signal. We were hoping that you would speed the process up by providing names so when the police investigate, they are not starting from scratch. Huber's face darkened significantly. "I don't think it is a good idea to involve the police. Things will get messy that way, and you likely won't be able to stay in your new home nor live in any type of peace." John and I looked at each other. The same thought crossed our minds. Then John turned to Huber. "We are the victims here, and this will affect our ability to have our home? It certainly sounds like some sort of threat." Huber raised his hands and then smiled. "I think you got the read on this situation all wrong. Look, this is standard protocol these days. Landlords are losing tons of money due to damage, illegal activities, unapproved renovations and so on. We have to protect our investments, so we keep tabs on our rentals just to be sure. I know what you must be thinking, but it's perfectly normal, standard practice these days." "The hell it is," John snapped. "That is the most psychotic crap of a rationalization I've ever heard. And you're freely admitting to spying on my family?" I held my arm against John's chest to stop him from advancing at Huber, but some part of me actually wanted to let him go. He stared daggers through the man. "We are going straight to the police." "Now that you certainly don't want to do," Huber said and sat down in a chair like it was not a big deal. "I have quite a bit of footage and you wouldn't want it getting out, would you?" He looked directly at me when he said it. I did not know what to think, but could only imagine what he was implying. His voice had changed. Gone was the friendly landlord. In his place sat a man who was used to getting away with things. "Reconsider your actions. Leave the cameras and head back home, or I will need to weigh my options on some new tenants." In a storm of fury, John stepped towards him, but I held him back again, insisting we go to the cops instead. Luckily, he listened, and that is just what we did. We brought in the cameras and they got to work investigating where the signal was coming from. They found a location, but it was not Huber's home. It was someplace that did not have a formal residence, somewhere at the edge of the woods a couple miles away. The cops told us they would get back to us as soon as they were done investigating and insisted that we go home and try to look around for any other cameras. On our drive home, Sonna called us in hysterics. One of her friends ran across a short 5-second video of Sonna changing in her room. It was one of the girls she befriended and was just letting her know, but at that point the video was online and had racked up thousands of views. The only silver lining was that Sonna's face was in the video for a mere second, but anyone who had been to her room would certainly identify it. Beyond furious, we called the detective we had been working with. He told us that they were still investigating but would now add the distribution of illicit child videos to the search. He also said that he sent someone to Huber's house to speak to him, but the sneaky old idiot must have snuck out as soon as we said we were going to the cops. Our next call was to our old attorney, who had a lot of connections and found one local to us that he trusted and relayed the situation. She called us later that night and said that she would like to meet with us as soon as possible. Despite it being a Sunday, we met Miss Book at her office. She told us about how she was a victim of a similar situation when she was younger and said that we did the right thing by going to the cops. But then she cautioned us to be smart with our next move. "This is serious," she said. "He could be facing years in prison, but we need to move carefully. People like him cover their tracks." The following week was pure unease in our home. We stayed as conservative as possible, changed with lights off when possible, and waited to hear from the cops. After 3 days passed, John was done sitting back and waiting. He contacted his techie friend back in our old town, and he walked John through how to try and search for the source of the Sonar video. After hours of scouring, we stumbled upon a very shady forum where people were offering pictures and videos from such cameras. I was shocked that such a site would be allowed to stay up and active. We scoured further and found the video of Sonar and Tyler in the bathroom where his nude backside was on full display. Then of myself in the living room and another in my bedroom where I was also barely clothed. I was mortified. All these were shared from the same account, but besides a stupid handle, there was no other identifiable information available. So John created a fake account and played along, trying to contact the person. We heard nothing for about a day, until suddenly a message came through asking how much we were offering for those videos and a treasure trove of others. And yes, that did it. We documented everything and sent it straight to the detective on the case. We were informed 3 days later that we were needed at the police station. We headed over there and were informed that the information we provided proved pivotal in figuring out the source of the address. It was near where the signal from the cameras pointed, seemingly to the middle of nowhere, but it was not quite nowhere. There was a new townhouse being built in that area, and the workers were all on one side while the other seemed perpetually neglected, except it was not. In a locked basement was an entire setup, servers, cooling equipment, computer terminals with multiple screen setups and editing software. It turns out this was one of Huber's other properties. He had set it up as a shell and was willing to have tenants live on one side while he operated on the other. The cops arrested him when they saw him arriving at that location earlier that day. We were brought in while he was being processed. And he saw us far across the station, his face melting into a scowl of fury. The cops brought equipment to our house to look for additional cameras and found only one, but it was behind our TV, at a weird angle that would not have offered much of a view. As we awaited the trial, we could not really feel safe in that home again, but when the time came to head to court, we realized we were not his only victims. A single mother, an aging couple, and a blind man in his 30s were all his victims too. And yes, he picked them because they were not in a situation where they could risk losing their home, so when they confronted him, he leveraged his position over them. The sicko Huber was found guilty and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. When he got out, his access to any technology would be severely limited. His properties passed to the possession of his children, who were shocked by their father's deeds. They wanted to make this right, so they allowed all of the victims to have 6 months free of rent and then reduced it after that by nearly 25%. Neighbors whispered, shocked that the man they had trusted had been violating families like ours for years. That was all well-intentioned, but that is not a home we could stay in any longer. We did not want to move our kids too far from new friends, so we found another place in town. A place untouched by such violation. With time, we finally started to feel comfortable, and we hope that Huber actually never leaves prison, but some days I still wake up at night in a cold sweat and look around for any faint flashing blue lights that might give away new violations. Mainly, we made sure that Huber never took advantage or hurt anyone again. And yeah guys, I just cannot imagine how bad OP and his family must feel about this awful landlord, and I hope something like this never happens to them again. What a nightmare. The next one is titled, Someone kept hitting their car door into my car while I was in it, so I returned the favor. I was parked in a student parking structure and was stuck on a phone call before heading out. There was an SUV that pulled in next to me, and for a few minutes one of the girls had her door open while she was looking through the back seat. The door kept banging into my car, and I look over and see that she was not paying attention, and when all was said and done, her other friend came out from the other side of the car, and then they both left. I noticed the friend pointing out that her door was hitting my car, and that is when she looked and saw me sitting in my car. I shook my head at her after seeing that she was chuckling at the situation. They did not say anything because I was still on the phone. They were long gone by the time I finished my call, so I pulled my car back to park on the other side of her car and proceeded to slam my car door into hers repeatedly until some dents started caving in. My car is super old, by the way, so no biggie. But just because it is old does not mean people should be careless dicks about it. Anyway, it went fine and I felt a lot better about the situation overall. And the next one is another petty revenge story that is titled, Bought a car that turned out to be a lemon. Seller ignored me, so I sent him a text. Back about 10 years ago, I drove 3 hours to buy a very specific car and got an hour home when the car died. Luckily at a garage. Had a mechanic look at it and he said it was obvious the seller had botched a problem with the piston rings and would cost more than I paid to fix. So he rang the seller to discuss it with him, but he ignored my calls, refuses to reply to texts, and I was very polite, just really wanted to talk to him about it. No abuse was sent, just want to make that clear. After a couple days, I got fed up and I remembered that this guy had a very old phone, one that only accepts text messages of a certain amount of characters, and then had to split the text into another message. I, on the other hand, had an iPhone. So I copied and pasted the entire works of Shakespeare into a message and sent it. Apparently, it took a week before he could use his phone again without a text message interrupting him. They came every second or so anytime he turned his phone on. I eventually got a refund and he got his car back. And yeah guys, if you have any petty revenge stories to share of your own life, then I would love to hear them in the comments or on r/ripe stories on Reddit, where you can post fully fledged stories and there's a good chance I will read them in a video. Anyway, the next one is titled, I caught him cheating, Reddit helped me. I won't go into all the gory details of our relationship. We were in love and well, I still love him, but I found out clearly that he does not love me. I discovered proof that he's been cheating on me for a while in the form of small home movies of them. I don't know the girl, and from the looks of their conversations, yep, I went ahead and post-discovery snooped, she has no idea that I exist. Tonight is the biggest night of my boyfriend's life. He's receiving a state award at a big dinner with a few hundred people attending, from his mom and dad to councilmen and all of that. In fact, the only reason I discovered this transgression is because I've been putting together a little video for him to enjoy some of the key moments of his life. You know, typical sad piece stuff. I'm burdened with a lot of power right now, and I don't know if I have it in me to do the right thing or if I even know the right thing. I'm actually blinded with tears of rage and sadness and betrayal, but at the same time I love him, I have loved him, and do I really want to do this? Well, the relationship is over, no doubt about it. I'm not a woman who will take her man cheating on her, certainly not. That's not the issue though. The issue is there are cutesy selfies of the two of them, a lot of them only shared between the two of them, nothing lewd, there's plenty of that on camera though. Do I sneak one in the snap reel as a way of letting him know that I know? Or do I simply confront him after his moment in the sun passes? I'm not gonna pick up everything and leave without cutting contact, that's not my style, and it wouldn't make me feel good, just very sad. Do I do the witchy thing for once in my life? To anyone looking at the snap reel, it would just look like a picture of him and a friend, but to him and to me, it would be a private message, an outing, help me Reddit. I don't know what to do this time. Comments on Reddit said, nah, you know what? If there's really nothing that anyone would pick up on other than the two of you, you slip that photo into the slideshow, make eye contact with him when the photo appears on screen, and then when it's over, you stand up and walk out. It ain't the high road, but nobody needs to walk the high road all the time. OP answered, I chuckled, I think the only reason I would do this is to make eye contact with him so that he knows I know. But I'm not sure I have the guts to do that. I'm not exactly Olivia Pope. Update, well, it's been a month and a half since this all went down. I've gotten so many requests for an update and I never intended to actually give one, honestly, because I was afraid of the fallout, depending on what I ended up doing. So what did I do? I did the immature, vengeful thing, and I don't regret it. So I took a few photos of the two of them, tasteful photos that gave off no indication other than she might be a childhood friend. I slipped them into the snap reel and I spoke kindly of him at the podium, and then after my turn was finished, I walked out. I drove home feeling calm and in control. 20 minutes later, the text started. Where did I go? What did I know? Where did I find the photos? Was there more in store for him? I texted him, I know you've been screwing her, but there are no more photos. There weren't any, and of course I left it at that. He didn't come home that night or the next day. He called me to ask me if we could meet and talk at a public location. I agreed to meet him at Starbucks. I arrived early and waited for him. He showed up a few minutes late and took the seat across from me. He started right off with the excuses how it just happened and he regrets it fully, that she doesn't mean anything to him and that she looked like a girl he had a crush on in high school and he was powerless against his teenage self. I didn't interrupt him, just let him have his time. When he was done and looking at me for a sign of what might happen next, all I could say was, so where did you stay the past few nights? Her house. And what did you do? He wouldn't answer. There hadn't been any doubt in my mind, really. I knew I was leaving him. He talked over himself, apologizing, begging for forgiveness, saying he would change. I told him that I didn't want him to have to change himself. That if who he was naturally was someone who cheated on his girlfriend, then that's not someone I wanted to be with. He said that he was thinking of proposing to me, and all I could say after that was, good thing I found out before. Fast forward to a few weeks later, he has moved out and I'm doing well. We have cut off contact. People ask me about him all the time and I just let them know. He left me for a girl who looked like his high school crush. So that's the end. We are broken up. We are never ever getting back together, and that's a nice song by the way. I don't feel any regret for how I handled it. Like one commenter said, there's no need to take the high road all the time. And to end the video, we will read the last story from r/I don't work here lady. It is titled, Got in Trouble for Shopping at Joann's Instead of Manning the Register. So I was at Joann's with my 2 daughters looking at fuzzy cabin socks on sale for Christmas. I was wearing a sweater and jeans, nothing that would indicate that I worked there. A lady was standing at the checkout counter and looked over at me, so I smiled politely and she smiled back. I went back to minding my own business, looking at the socks the girl wanted, and noticed a woman at the counter was still staring. Feeling uncomfortable and hoping she was just looking at the items near me, I looked at her and made a joke about stocking up during the sale. She responded, I guess that's why no one is here at the counter working. A bit sarcastically. I figured she was joking, so I nodded and gave a polite laugh. That is when she walked over to me in a bit of a huff. At the same time, 2 Jonah employees walked by us heading to the register. She looked at me and said, Oh, you don't work here, and walked to the counter. It made me wonder if I just avoided an ass chewing. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, please like the video and I will see you again tomorrow.